All right, good evening. We are going to go ahead and start the meeting. It is 6:30 and we're trying to be as on time as we can. I'm Michelle Pace Davis. I'm here with the Land Use Plan Committee. If you are part of the Land Use Plan Committee, if you could please either raise your hand or stand up, we would appreciate it. Thank you. Okay, so this is, if you have questions along the process, please reach out to other members of the committee as well as staff. I'd like to recognize Braston with our County Planning Department. He's in the back. He helped greet everyone. So if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to the consulting team as well as the land use plan and the county staff. The way the night's going to go is we are going to do a presentation of an overview of the land use plan. And during the meeting, we will have index cards and Post-its along with pens. So if you have any questions that are coming through your mind about the land use plan, we can write these down to be able to have already available during the Q&A session after this. There is also a QR code that is available for all of the information to share tonight that will be online. So then that way, if you are unable to attend the meeting tonight, as well as other people you want to share the information tonight in your local communities, this is a way you can do that is through the county website through the QR code. So we highly encourage you to, as you are here tonight, to also let people know in your communities around the county the updates that you hear, as well as to be able to give feedback to the Land Use Plan Committee and the Planning Department. At this time, I'll hand it over to Ben.
Thanks so much, Michelle. Great to be here with you this evening. My name is Ben Hitchings. I'm one of the members of the consulting team. We also have Allison Evans and Morgan. Where's Morgan? In the back. So we've been working with the county staff and with the steering committee to develop an updated comprehensive land use plan for the county. We know the county is going through a lot of change. Y'all are experiencing that every day. And so this is a really important document that helps establish policies and strategies for how to protect the things you love and add the things you need in the years ahead here in Johnston County. We've now been through about a year's worth of outreach and engagement and working with our steering committee and staff and stakeholders throughout the county. So we have a draft of the plan, but now we're focused in particular on sharing some proposed strategies for how to implement the plan. And so the posters that you see that you can look at during the open house will explain in more detail the different strategies that we're proposing to help achieve the vision articulated in the plan. So it's a great time for y'all to be out here. Really glad that you were able to make it this evening and join us. All right, so as Michelle mentioned, we've got two parts to the evening. We've got this presentation. As she described, we're going to give you an overview of the structure of the plan and some of the key measures, but there is a lot of detail, and you'll be able to get into more of that detail as you go to the different stations in the second part of the program, the open house. In this presentation, I'll talk a little bit with the help of Allison and Don Bryson. Oh, I forgot to introduce Don as well on our planning team. He's our transportation expert. Allison's our land use expert. We'll talk about the process that we've gone through. We'll give an overview of the plan. We'll talk about the vision that's embodied in the plan, captured in a set of goals and also a future land use map. And then we'll talk about the recommendations, those strategies that will then help the county over time pursue that vision and to sort of help support what people would like to see in the county. As Michelle mentioned, we are then going to have a question and answer session. In order to answer as many questions as possible, we are asking folks to write your questions down. Again, Michelle's got handout, Post-its and index cards for y'all to be able to do that. We're only going to take written questions during that Q&A session. But then we'll all be available during the open house if you want to talk to us one-on-one. All right, so let's talk about the process here. We really have 3 steps, major steps that we go through when we prepare the land use plan. The first is what we call discovery. This is where we're trying to learn everything we can about the county, about the existing conditions in the county. We begin to engage folks like yourselves in the community to hear your concerns and opportunities that you see for the county in the years ahead. That discovery work and public input then helps us craft a set of goals. We've got 15 goals in the plan. So there are a lot of goals reflecting the needs and opportunities and challenges that the county is facing. We also create a map that shows, proposes how land should be used in the county in the years ahead. This is the so-called Future Land Use Map, or FLUME. And so that is an important document. That map is not the zoning ordinance or the zoning map, but it does help to inform possible updates to the zoning map and the standards for allowing new development in the county. And then the third part of the plan is the recommendations. These are policies and strategies for how to implement this vision. This is a plan that's got a 10 to 20 year vision and time horizon. So an important thing to remember is that these recommendations will not all come to pass next year. It'll take years and years of work to implement the vision in the plan. But working together, y'all can help to pursue that vision over time. And then all that information is then bundled up into the actual plan document. And as Michelle mentioned, we've got a draft of the plan that you will be able to access online, and you are seeing many of the parts, particularly of the recommendations, displayed here tonight. All right, so as I mentioned, we've been doing a lot of work to engage folks across the county to hear what they care about, what opportunities that they see, concerns that they have. Also, as Michelle mentioned, we have a steering committee made up of residents of the county. And we really appreciate the time and thought and diligence of the members of the steering committee. We've had 6 steering committee meetings. We've also gone through 2 rounds of interviews with the Board of Commissioners. They are the ultimate decision makers. They have to approve the plan. So we really want to know things that they are thinking about, concerns they have, opportunities they see. We've also been doing a number of forums like the one tonight. This is actually our 4th forum. We've done 3 of them here in the Ag Center as a good central location. We also did one up at the Clayton Center as well. We know, however, that not everyone is able to always get out to an in-person meeting. So we've really done a lot of work to try and capture input online at the convenience of folks throughout the county. So we have actually done 4 online surveys. That is the most of any process I've been involved in. 4 different surveys, and we've gotten more than 3,000 responses to those surveys. So that, I think, has really helped folks who maybe couldn't make it to one of these meetings to share their thoughts and input. And then we've also had an online mapping exercise as well that Allison put together that helped people put dots on a map of Johnston County for different issues that they see in different places and then share their thoughts. So that was another way that we've collected input. So we've been doing a lot of work over the last year to hear from folks throughout the county. Folks have given us a lot of input, and we'll have a whole input summary that will be part of the plan or sort of an appendix to the plan. There are some themes that we've been hearing from folks in the survey responses and in the conversations we've had with them. Here are a few of the themes. One of them is recreation. So many folks during the pandemic maybe were stuck at home and looking for ways to get out already. You live in a county that has just some wonderful outdoor resources, both natural resources and also parks with improvements. And so recreation was one big theme, a desire to see more of that, to see more of a county role in recreation, particularly with what we call passive recreation. That's like trails and hiking and just being outside in the woods and fields. Many of the towns are working very hard to provide active recreation, like ball fields and that kind of thing. So that was one theme. Another was the importance of green space and conserving the landscape parts of the landscape that y'all have in Johnston County. One of the things as a longtime North Carolinian that I really appreciate about Johnston County is y'all are at the interface of 3 different physiographic regions. The Piedmont, the coastal plain, and also you've got a little bit of the sandhills. So y'all are in a unique location geographically in North Carolina and have some really rich natural resources. A third theme that we heard about was agriculture. We know how important agriculture is to the economy of Johnston County and also the way of life and the rural landscape of Johnston County. And we've through this process, I know I've had conversations with folks who live on centennial farms or even bicentennial farms, with those farms being in the family for all those years, and them working the landscape to provide food and fiber for the community and the country and the world. So we know that, and we heard in spades the importance of agriculture through this process. We know that a lot of folks are coming into the county. We're now at about 225,000 people living in Johnston County today. And we know that land values are going up and housing prices are going up. And so one of the things that we heard about was the importance of providing a variety of kinds of housing at different price points, so that say you're a longstanding family in Johnston County, your kids maybe have just graduated from college maybe or high school and are going off on their own. What is the opportunity for them to be able to buy a place and stay in the county? So that's something else that folks told us about through this process. We also heard about growth impacts, the way that growth looks, how intense or spread out it is, what kind of impacts it creates on our roads, our schools, our water and sewer infrastructure. And so that's another area where we got a lot of feedback and we have recommendations on how to have standards that help protect the service, the level of service and the quality of the infrastructure and the quality and character of the landscape. And then finally, the provision of infrastructure. We know that that is so important for supporting the various activities that we engage in on a daily basis in the county and managing the impacts from our activities. And so we want to make sure that we make efficient use of that infrastructure and make sure that costs are manageable in the years ahead. So those are some key themes that we've heard. And so based on all the input that we received, we created 15 different goals, and we've organized them into 4 clusters here. We've got one cluster that is like farmland, natural and cultural resources. Allison will be talking more about that in a few minutes. We've got a second cluster that is about the character of development, the cost of development, protecting existing places, allowing for appropriate new development in places that can support it. A third category is all about infrastructure, and Don will be talking about that, both transportation infrastructure, and also water and sewer infrastructure as well. And then the fourth category that I'll be talking some more about is implementing the plan. And we know whenever we're embarking on a big project like implementing a community or county plan, it's not something that one person or even a few people can do themselves. It's something that we all need to work together to do, and partner with other organizations, private businesses, private developers, nonprofit organizations, faith groups, and others, along working with the county to help pursue the shared vision for the future of the community. So with that, I'm going to invite Allison to come up and talk to you some more about land use and the future land use map. Allison?
All right. Good evening, everyone. As we have up here is the county's draft new future land use map. The different colors represent different place types, we call them, areas with different character that are explained more on a board in the corner of the room. This was created to, again, achieve that vision and those goals created in the beginning of this plan. You can see that, we have a large area of green over towards the southwest, the southeast. That area is, emphasizing how our growth is directed towards Clayton, that area around Cleveland, that side that's seeing a lot of impact from the growth in Wake County. So it's emphasizing both growth management and directing housing towards those municipalities and areas where there is supportive infrastructure. It's slightly more structured than the future land use map the county has now, and hopefully that impact will be seen in those rezoning decisions and land use policies the county sets for the next 10 to 20 years. Again, just an overview of these place types that are explained in detail in the corner. Their classifications of development, these are a bit more modern than the ones that the county's current plan has. They depict what is intended for each area based on things like land use, scale and density, circulation, and open space. Orange is our medium density residential, going down to that yellow and green on that residential side, and then we have our non-residential areas. And those are really nodes that we've identified throughout the county, different scales from a rural crossroads to a community center that could one day be something like White Oak to bring that retail and commercial to the county. But we see a future where those services are concentrated in strategic areas that have things like transportation access and surrounding supportive neighborhoods to give them the customer base they need and to serve the residents in the county rather than having to travel currently to White Oak or where else. So our recommendations, again, these are just highlights. The details are in these many, many pages around the room. But to start off, this number one goal, a huge thing we heard during the community engagement was a future where farmland is preserved and agricultural industry continues to thrive. And this is executed both in proposing ways to support farmers and making smart land use decisions. We've heard that over 90% agree with this goal of conserving viable agriculture where concentrations of working lands exist. Once those lands are turned over to another use, they, most likely will not go back to that original use. So to achieve this, we are looking at ways to strengthen efforts and tools, applying that 2010 Johnston County Agricultural Development Plan. We see a future of education and promotion of the both the impacts of agriculture, positive economic pillar that it is, both in its productive qualities and agritourism that it brings to the county, and continuing to promote those agricultural programs such as the VAD program and the present use value program, encouraging landowners to enroll in those to get the most benefit of their land as possible. We're also proposing the creation of some new policies and zoning districts that would support agricultural landowners, such as a voluntary agricultural communities program that is explained in more detail, maybe the creation of a new agricultural zoning district that would have special, very low density specifications, but would allow things like the storage and accessory uses to agriculture nearby without bringing in things like, say, a huge Walmart. And we can see a future where maybe the county creates a voluntary purchase of development rights program, aiming for a certain number of acreage every year to put back into the county control from what's available now. So we've heard a lot throughout our public engagement that people do support the buffering of agricultural operations from nearby housing developments and residential uses. These homes are being built, right next to working farms, and there's can be conflicts on both sides, but we are proposing, maybe a program, an ordinance that regulates and proposes buffers between these residential areas in new subdivisions and from those working farms, and those would really benefit both sides. Speaking of open space, conservation, recreation, and tourism, the plan envisions a future where there is high-quality passive and active recreational opportunities throughout the county, connected by trails, and where natural, historic, and cultural sites are protected. We heard a lot about the need to increase recreation needs and increase land and conservation in the fast-growing parts of the county, such as Cleveland and Archer Lodge has had strong support throughout our public surveys. The plan proposes to conserve natural resources of the county and expand cultural and recreational opportunities. The county is so fortunate to sit with large greenway systems such as the East Coast Greenway and the Mountains to Sea Trail passing right through it, which provide recreation opportunities for residents, in addition to bringing in tourism, people who ride these trails regionally and across and down the East Coast. So how can we connect the county's recreation centers to those larger trails, get those residents on the trails and enjoying what's in their own backyard? The plan thinks that we should be serving population centers. It proposes ways, in the area of Cleveland, there is already a planning process underway for a 2-park recreation area that would be under county management. And it also proposes that the county can prepare an open space management plan. This could be county-wide, or it could be focused on a small area like Howell Woods, but to really, nurture and tend those specific natural resource areas around the county, to plan specifically for what their needs are and the growth that that particular area is seeing. We have this conservation and parks and open space concept map, again, on one of these posters in the side of the room. It just proposes ways that we can advance the creation of a robust county parks and recreation system and how we can support efforts to complement the county system that's already in place. And again, bringing it back to agriculture, people come here for the character and they want to see that preserved along with the features that make Johnston County distinctive. How can we make it attractive for all the residents that live here while still, allowing what's coming on the ground? Because we heard from the first survey that only 27% of respondents were satisfied or very satisfied with the overall appearance of recent development in the county, and that's not great, and we think that the county can do better. Bringing in, creative ways to design development or a subdivision. Some of these are already being seen on the ground in the county, but we'd love to promote different innovative styles towards subdivision design where, natural features are preserved and people have their housing and everybody wins. Maybe codifying these in a better way within the code would help bring these on the ground. So again, increasing the compatibility of residential development and agricultural operations and subdivision design by preserving these open spaces, encouraging context-sensitive development around Benton Battlefield and nearby historic sites, and promoting those different types of subdivisions that might help bring up the people's approval rating of the development that we're seeing in Johnston County. So with that, I'd like to turn it over to Ben to talk more about housing.
Thanks, Allison. Another goal that folks articulated that's captured in the plan is a desire to have a variety of housing in terms of price, product, and place, and also to protect existing neighborhoods. And we had some questions on our surveys. A number of folks told us they wanted to see an expansion of housing choice. 47% of people agreed, 18% of folks were neutral. Particularly more housing choice where there is access to existing infrastructure. We also heard more than 60% of folks say that they really wanted to see rural residential housing that was well-designed, sort of fit into the landscape, and was small scale. So that's something else that we then worked to capture. So to sort of operationalize those two ideas, we propose amending the land development ordinance to try and direct more residential development to areas around the municipalities particularly the so-called extraterritorial jurisdiction of the municipalities that's close to existing development in the munis, and also to areas with adequate infrastructure. And then also to maintain design standards for new subdivisions and increasing the requirements if depending on the amount of activity that's allowed. We also have goals around the importance of compact development that is more efficient to serve with infrastructure, but that also brings some good tax base to the county, and also the importance of maintaining and elevating the quality of new development. One aspect of this is commercial nodes. We have different kinds of places where we go to shop and find services or goods. Some of them are bigger regional centers. Others are more neighborhood scale. And then others are the kinds of like a convenience store or smaller scale services that we might see at a crossroads. And so those are three different kinds of places, and you'll see those three different kinds of places represented on that future land use map. We also heard from folks about the importance of providing good jobs. And so the recruitment of business and industry is important, and the plan calls for doing that particularly in designated employment centers that both support businesses and also link them to public utilities and major transportation corridors and services that can benefit the workers who are working at those jobs. So we've worked to reflect this sort of hierarchy of commercial places in the plan. There's some things that can be done with the development ordinance to further reflect that. And we're also, the plan also encourages allowing what we call compact communities, sort of complete villages that have both residential and commercial and civic uses in one place that are kind of like a small walkable village, but only in places that can support this kind of activity. One example of a place that could become that is McGee's Crossroads. And so we have landscape architects on our team. Meg Nealon has done a fantastic job with this project. She could not join us tonight, but she did a lot of work to develop one vision based on the public input we heard for how McGee's Crossroads might evolve over time. What you see is McGee's Crossroads with I-40 here, 210 here, and NC-50 here. Here's the existing middle school. Folks told us they want to have a green appearance along the roadway, so you see some buffering and vegetation. We have in the yellow some existing, or in the gray, some existing subdivisions that are already going in. So how can we build to sort of connect with those? We also have a grid network of streets off of 210 so that not all the traffic is on 210. So if you are living in a neighborhood off of 210, you'd have another way, for example, to get to the school or to the growing commercial area closer to I-40. So you can take a closer look at these designs. We've got them at one of the tables. And again, this is just one concept of how an area like this could grow over the coming years. We also looked at Corinth Holders in the north central part of the county. This is a smaller crossroads. And of course, again, we've got the existing Corinth Holders Elementary School. So how can we've got some new subdivisions already that have been developed. How can we create sort of a community focal point building off of the school, maybe by allowing a little bit of commercial development right at the crossroads with some lower density residential development adjacent to that. So that, again, just one concept of how that area could grow in the years ahead. All right, and now I'll turn it over to Don Bryson to talk about infrastructure.
Thanks, Ben. hear a lot about infrastructure lately, and I think Ben did a pretty good job of giving a quick overview, but the definition of infrastructure has really been stretched quite a bit since I started. We're going to focus on infrastructure that's all publicly owned or operated, generally physical concrete and steel things that it just so happens turn out to be networks that move people or things. It's roads, water, sewer, railroads, trails, bike lane. There's this whole combination of things, but they're really very similar in that we want to try to maintain a decent level of service. This infrastructure is necessary for your communities to thrive and prosper, but they're not sufficient. You can't just throw a road out there. And it used to be when infrastructure was cheap and easy to build, you'd put the roads and sewers out there and the houses would come and everybody was happy. It's kind of flipped now, where infrastructure is so complicated and difficult and expensive to build and maintain. People forget about that. You're talking 50, 100-year investments that need to be maintained. It's hard to keep up. It's hard to get ahead. And a lot of times we're in the position of reacting to growth. So we want to try to avoid that. And we also want to keep it cost effective because it is generally a public good. So we want the costs to be borne as equitably as possible and the benefits to be spread as much as possible. And that's a tricky balancing act. But it came out in our earlier discussions, for example, direct growth towards municipalities where these networks already exist. There's a lot of capacity that's not being used. I know in my personal finances and in my business, we want to use what we have before we go out and buy something new. And we want to take care of, we want to maintain our vehicles or our house and the roof and everything rather than go buy and build a new one. So I think that comes through consistently is this idea of making better use of what we have, taking care of it. And we can use technology now to get, things like computer systems and advances in cars and traffic signals that can squeeze more capacity out of the system we have. And one of the worst things we're facing in all of these infrastructure systems, water, sewer, and cars, is this peak demand where the road, for example, might be relatively empty 20 hours a day, then it kind of gets crowded, but then like the 1 hour or on the Fridays when everyone's going to the beach or Black Friday, how do we spread that demand out, whether it's water or traffic, so that it doesn't overwhelm and we're not building for this tiny little peak period. The other thing is just the quality of the infrastructure. Big emphasis here on stormwater retention requirements. So we could build a stormwater system that is not that good. It does what it needs to do, but it floods, it leaks, it damages the environment. So we want to do quality and that balancing act of what we can afford to provide and what the growth demands is what we're trying to get our hands on these policies we're talking about. So again, this emphasis on maximize what we have before we add new. And this is for all the infrastructure that we're talking about. We want growth that takes advantage of where there is already capacity. So that's kind of infill and kind of smarter growth looking where there is capacity. Preserving, enhancing, optimizing existing systems, like putting in more responsive traffic signals rather than having to widen the road. Managing for efficiency and cost effectiveness and resiliency, having choices and options, and not being fixated on designing for that one small peak, but kind of can we do something to spread that peak out and use what we have more efficiently. And giving people choices. Not everybody has the same options and choices to get around. For example, not everyone has a car, can drive a car, so we want to provide some other choices for transit, walking, bikes, things like that. A lot of these require local decisions, but then the water supply in one place might be more than that location needs, where the next place over is deficient. So that kind of regional sharing. Same with transportation. Trips start in one place, go through another place, and end somewhere else. So it's got to be both local and regional. And the other reason we really want to try to avoid building too much brand new stuff is the funding costs have become so unpredictable and so enormous that it's always better to, try to get another year out of the car I have now than go out and buy a new one. And technology is giving us some real opportunities to do this more efficiently, to see when these peaks are happening and to help manage infrastructure better. And that's what this kind of use of data refers to. And the other thing that's a little trickier to get at directly is the distribution. The costs and benefits of this infrastructure are not always spread equally around. A highway can provide great benefits to someone who has a business right there, less benefit to a neighborhood, less benefit to a wetlands. There are places where it's very expensive to build new infrastructure, other places where it's easier. We want to be looking at those. So we want to make sure that the county as a whole has some distribution of benefits, more safe, secure, healthy, resilient communities, access to services and jobs. We want to have options for not having to go only to this one store or only be able to travel if I have a car or two cars. But we also need to support the economy. And here that's very critical in terms of industrial and agricultural uses, trucks, rail, getting freight in and out, and dependable utilities that you can rely on, whether it's electric or water and sewer. And we want to the extent possible, promote affordable solutions that allow people a good choice of accessing housing and jobs that can pay for those houses. And we want to do projects that enhance, if possible, definitely don't damage cultural and natural resources. And this part is going to help do that.
Thanks so much, Don. Okay, this is the last category for the set of goals. This is all about implementation. Again, we know we can only achieve our community vision working together, so we have to take coordinated action. We've got to, the county government has to collaborate across departments. It's got to work with the business community, with developers, with neighborhood associations, with the school system. So that's a key goal. We also know that we've got, 13 municipalities. They also, the county's got to work closely with the municipalities. There are many things that the county and the municipalities agree on. There may be some things where they don't always agree. So there's an opportunity to respect each other's differences and then collaborate where it makes sense to everyone. One of the things we have when we finish the plan is we have this document that is a touchstone for making decisions, and it can be also a great tool for coordinating. And so say a county commissioner is meeting with a council member from one of the towns, he or she can pull out the plan and use that to have a good conversation about a particular issue. So we think there's opportunity for doing that and using that plan to really help facilitate coordination. Something else that we heard from our steering committee in particular is, okay, we're doing this plan, we're putting a lot of work into crafting this shared vision. We want to make sure that we see consistent progress on implementing the plan. And so that's a key goal that's actually called out in the plan. One of the things that we do to help facilitate that is we create an action plan that identifies all these strategies. It starts with all the strategies that you'll have a chance to look at more closely around the room that you've been hearing about from Allison, Don, and myself. Also, another technique that we often use is creating project teams specifically charged with taking on some of the key implementation projects. And so those project teams work together, for example, to update the development ordinance for the county to reflect the standards that folks have suggested to help maintain the quality of new development and the quality of the county. Another strategy that we use is providing regular updates on progress for implementing the plan. Often what I see and suggest is like at least an annual update where the county staff comes before, often the elected board, the Board of Commissioners, and gives an update. Here, here's the status of the initial set of implementation projects. Again, this is a plan with a 10 to 20 year horizon. So everything's not going to get done right away. It's going to take time. But the thing that we hope for and shoot for is steady progress on implementing the vision. In order to do that, particularly in a community that's growing quickly like Johnston County, we got to make sure we have the capacity and the resources to do these implementation projects. I was the planning director in the town of Morrisville for 10 years, right by the airport, when we were going through a tremendous growth phase. And every year, our town manager would bring forward an updated staffing plan with new positions, saying this is how we're going to make sure we continue to provide good service to the community. Same is true here. The staff are going to need more help, and they're going to also need resources. We know, as Don was saying, making capital investments requires money to build infrastructure. So we need both people and investment in order to implement the plan. One of the other things, too, that we're seeing, particularly coming out of the pandemic, is an increasing attention by local governments to preparing to handle emergencies and a range of emerging issues that our communities are facing, to increase the resiliency and shorten the response time when we do get a shock like something like a pandemic. I mean, who would have thought something like that would have had the impact it did? Now our challenge is to prepare ourselves to be able to respond more quickly for the next thing that comes along. It might be a flood, it might be a chemical spill, or who knows what. But all those things, our ability to react quickly in the moment is a result of pre-planning. And so we've got a few suggestions on how to track emerging issues, share information between the county and municipalities, and also on a regional scale, and better prepare the county for the next challenge that might come along. So we suggest creating a standing county task force dedicated to tracking the range of emerging issues. Some of these issues are things we've been dealing with for a while, like an aging population, but we're about to see we're seeing a continued growth as the baby boomers retire. That's a force. We've got to make sure our communities work for all ages. We're seeing issues. Let's see, what are some other examples? We're seeing. Let's call it what it is. We're seeing our climate start to change. We got, the things that we can do to prepare ourselves. We're seeing drier summers. We know the impact that has on agriculture. There are things we can do to help manage this changing world that we live in. And a key to that is sharing information and coordinating with our partners. All right, so that is our whirlwind overview to the different issues that are captured in the goals of the plan, that are reflected, and then the strategies that we are proposing to help the county respond effectively to those issues and pursue its shared vision over time. Let's talk now about what happens coming out of this meeting. So we've got this draft plan, as Michelle mentioned. It'll be available online for you to look, and also on these tables for you to look at in more detail. We'd love to hear what you think. So we've got another survey. This is our fourth survey. It's available on the county website. The QR code is available on the handout that we have here tonight. So you can give us your thoughts on these different strategies and these different goals through that survey. So we'll be getting some more public input. And then under state law, we then have to go through a particular process where we bring the plan to the planning board, the county planning board, and they will review the plan and they'll make a recommendation to the Board of Commissioners. And under state law, the Board of Commissioners is the body vested with the authority for adopting the plan. So there will be a public hearing before the Board of Commissioners, and then the Board of Commissioners will vote on whether to adopt the plan or whether to make some revisions to it.